Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 Minute Marvel. I'm your host Petter. Today on 10 Minute Marvel, we're going to be talking about She-Hulk episode 3, as well as maybe talking a little speculation about D23 and what you need to know that's coming up there. But before I get to all of that, I just want to thank you for listening. I hope that you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, please consider subscribing, sharing it with your friends, or leaving a rating and review. You can find the podcast over on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. So let's start with the news where, D23 is coming up this week. I believe Thursday is the Disney Plus day. Likely going to get some Marvel trailers for upcoming shows at that point. They already showed some footage of Secret Invasion at Comic-Con. I fully expect to get a Secret Invasion trailer at some point coming up here, probably at D23. And then, of course, there's the bigger Marvel announcements as well that are going to be happening. Fully expect more stuff to be filled in Phase 6. So what we know so far of that phase is Fantastic Four, as well as the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So definitely going to be a lot to talk about next week. We do have one bit of news, which is that Ben Kingsley, who plays Trevor Slattery in both Shang-Chi and Iron Man 3, is going to be coming back into the MCU for the Wonder Man series. At least that's the story going on right now, which ties into Wonder Man in some ways because Wonder Man is a stuntman. So to have somebody who's connected with acting, connected with Hollywood, in that it makes sense. And Trevor Slattery definitely would give a nice comedic element to what most likely is going to be a pretty comedic show. But let's get on to She-Hulk episode 3. And this might be probably is my favorite episode of She-Hulk thus far because we got to see kind of more of that courtroom type of thing. And it is the type of courtroom comedy that works well for me. So we had the whole Abomination getting him out of jail, Wong messing up and having released Abomination, and Abomination going back on his own free will. So that part of the story was fun. The more interesting part, and I think kind of the more fun part of the story, was the Pug case with this Asgardian light elf kind of trickster shapeshifter who is, catfishing people and catfishing the lousy lawyer whom She-Hulk used to work with. I would use other words, but I want to keep this kind of family friendly for the most part. And I think it worked really well. I love how the case is, or the lawsuit is won. It comes down to the fact that this guy is so delusional that yes, he would actually believe that as a skeezy guy, he could end up dating a celebrity, Megan Thee Stallion in this case, including a cameo from her, which was a lot of fun. I thought they did a good job of taking this really absurd case, this thing where it didn't make that much sense why you're going to have that in there, but I think it fits with the tone of the show. I think it makes sense when we see this show going forwards. I'm not sure that it's made a ton of sense for it yet, but She-Hulk is going to be that case of the week, and Pug having this case to go opposite Jen's much bigger, much more important case is fun. And I think having these different superpowered things occur, such as potentially the Wrecking Crew, who are villains in the comics, being the ones who try and take on Jen in the dark alleyway. It's meant to be a good time. I think we're going to find that there will be small elements in this that tie into the bigger MCU. Probably the biggest one is that we're just going to see She-Hulk in stuff in the future, but it isn't necessarily going to be, say, a WandaVision or a Loki, where those are very key for what we've seen moving forward and what we know is going to be coming. She-Hulk is just going to be fun. It probably is going to set up something for Daredevil. It is laying the groundwork for Deadpool 3 to happen with her fourth wall breaking. And yeah, it's hard to say anything really negative about the show because it is just such a fun, light show. Is it over the top? Sure, but it's a comedy. It's meant to be over the top. Is it maybe a little bit edgier than some of Marvel's other stuff? Sure, but that matches up perfectly with the comics. This is one of those things where people might be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing this. Well, She-Hulk being sexual, being a little bit more risque, that is 100% how it works in the comics too, because she breaks the fourth wall. She knows how over the top it is, and it works. And it works for this show as well. I think it works for the MCU in that, yeah, you're going to have people coming into the MCU younger, but it's in some ways something that I don't think Star Wars has gotten, that people, new viewers of the MCU, kids who are going to start watching the MCU, are probably going to be watching with their parents from the beginning. And getting through everything in the MCU takes a whole bunch of time, and a good parent is going to kind of pace out or divvy out what it is and be fairly specific as to which ones they show when. And She-Hulk allows it to level up and kind of mature up for an audience that is getting older. For those of us who are watching everything come out and have since the beginning, I mean, it's years at this point. So we've gotten older. We've gotten more mature. We are not teenagers who started out watching Marvel. We're not teenagers anymore. So it makes sense to have the content continue to push forward and to try different things. But let me know your thoughts on She-Hulk. This is a shorter episode, which kind of expected, not that much news. Next week's episode, it's going to be a long one. There's no way with D23 that we're not going to have a whole bunch of announcements to talk about, plus then She-Hulk episode 4. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you want to see coming out of D23. What are some announcements for Phase 6 that just aren't out there yet that you want to know are hitting the calendar? You can do that by leaving comments over on Twitter. Tweet them to me at @thescando or with hashtag 10minmarvel, or you can leave comments over on nerdologists.com where I post these episodes as well. But with that, again, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this content, enjoy this podcast. There are a few ways you can help support at the beginning, but we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/nerdologists. The money there goes to help improve the quality of this podcast, as well as the Malts and Meeples YouTube channel and nerdologist.com website. But with that, I'll see you next time.